If you had told me this time a year ago that I would be sitting here reviewing a new Life is Strange game, I really would have never believed it. And what's more, if you had told me a year ago that I would be sitting here reviewing a direct sequel to Double Exposure, I would have called the priest to perform an exorcism on you, because that would have been the demons talking. But we live in a world of demons, so here we are. And what's more, if you had told me 365 days ago that I'd be sitting here reviewing a direct sequel to Double Exposure that I actually kinda liked? What? I really could have never foreseen such a future. We are really living in the weirdest timeline, y'all. And here we are, just a year and a half after the release of Double Exposure with Life is Strange Reunion. And though I do have a full-scale review of Reunion coming out later this month, I thought in the meantime it would be fun to put our hater hats back on and give this game a thoroughly well-deserved roast. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So the first thing that I want to talk about is all of the bugs and glitches. This one doesn't surprise me at all, because you know what? There was so many bugs and so many glitches in Double Exposure. The number one glitch that I experienced was texture pop-ins, and oh my lord! Every single cutscene, every single time it cut from one shot to the next, textures would load in really slow, lighting would pop in and out. Stuff just doesn't load properly. I played the game on base PS5 and it was absolutely everywhere. Textures would also completely fail to load sometimes during gameplay. There's a sequence where you walk around as Chloe in the snapping turtle, and all of the paintings on the walls don't load unless you walk really close to them. This wasn't even an issue in Double Exposure. So in a lot of ways, there's way more bugs and way more issues in this one. In Double Exposure, there was pop-in too, but it was only in some cutscenes, and it was incredibly distracting, and some of them are pretty egregious. There's this one part where Max has a flashback to being in the hotel, and it shows a shot of her baggage, and the shot is so quick that the baggage actually doesn't load at all. So, wow. I also bought the deluxe edition of this game, which comes with outfit packs for Max and Chloe that represent what they looked like in the first Life is Strange. And I'm pretty disappointed to report that Max's Jane Doe t-shirt is pixelated. It's pixelated for the whole game. I don't even think this is a texture loading failure thing. They just made a really fucking pixelated shirt, slapped it on, and called it a damn day. Another recurring issue, and I've seen this in a lot of Unreal 5 games, I've seen this in both Double Exposure as well as Lost Records, is during cutscenes, when it cuts between one character and another, their hair will flip out really wildly for the first few frames. I have no idea why I've seen that in so many Unreal 5 games, because all of the games where I've seen characters' hair randomly flipping at the start of a shot are the same games where I see texture pop-ins. Reunion, Double Exposure, Lost Records, all incredibly guilty of this. Just disappointing to see it here too. It's really distracting. Another huge bug that plagues the entire game, and there is a shocking amount of it, is shots out of focus. Now, I have never seen a video game with shots that are out of focus. I taught film school, and I've certainly seen a lot of student films that are out of focus, and that's because people don't know how to properly focus their cameras, or they don't have a good eye for it. But that's real life. That's film and photography. This is a fucking fictional video game. How is the focus off? Like, what the fuck? When Sophie and Max sit down together for the first time, their close-ups are both out of focus. Max and Chloe in the boat, there's like 3 shots in a row that are totally out of focus. When Max and Moses are together, they're both out of focus. Chloe looking into Ren's bag is out of focus. Kind of ironic that this is such a huge bug when they're about to release a companion book later this year that is literally called Life is Strange Out of Focus. I mean, maybe I'm in the wrong here. Maybe this is actually an incredibly clever and subversive nod to the book, and Deck 9 did this intentionally, in which case, damn Deck 9, that's some beautiful 4D chess. You got me. Can't wait to read Out of Focus after playing Out of Focus. But when you idle, whether you're playing Max or Chloe, it will verbally remind you to do something, but it's too frequent. Every 30 seconds, Max will be like, I need to go to this place and do that thing. You know, I need to go to this place and do that thing. I should really go to this place and do that thing.
I'll need that password if I want to get into the forum. I'll need that password if I want to get into the forum. I'll need that password if I want to get into the forum.
There is an option in your settings to turn down the amount of hints, which to me only communicates that they knew they were adding in too much. And I like to look around, right? I mean, that's the whole fucking point of these games. So I did find it irritating that it felt like the game was trying to rush me. I was taking my time and the game was telling me to pick up the pace. Absolutely hate that. So in this game, you get your rewind powers back and they're really boring. I'll talk about that in a second, but for now, I just want to talk about the visual bugs that somehow happen when you rewind because what the fuck? What the acid trip nightmare am I looking at? I've seen other people get this one too, and this is probably one of the most disturbing bugs because what the fuck? Because you have rewind powers, you can skip certain sections of dialogue you've already had. Now, with the old game where it would just flash to white and give you that flippy sound, in Reunion, when you skip a dialogue option, it straight up just cuts to black. And it's really jarring, and it looks extremely cheap. Keep in mind, the first game is 10 years old, but yeah, whenever you skip dialogue, just total black frame for a few seconds. Incredibly lame in my opinion. How could they not have patched that? I also noticed pretty early on the game has a lot of loading screens, no matter how short the scene is. Anytime a scene finishes, you get a loading screen, and you know, living in a PS5 age, I just got really used to not having loading screens or having them very far and few between. There's a scene near the end when the fire is happening, and I think it's when Chloe comes out of the overlook, and when she leaves the overlook you get a loading scene, and then it loads in Chloe and all she does is say Max, and then it goes to another loading screen, and then it goes to the fire. It literally had to load 5 seconds in and 5 seconds out for a 5-second shot. That's a 1-to-1 ratio of cutscene to loading screen, and that's a new one for the franchise. I don't remember any of the other games having so many fucking loading screens. Whoever was making this game on a technical level really didn't know what they were doing. The game is extremely poorly optimized. How could a game this, you know, it's not graphically heavy or anything. We're not playing fucking Death Stranding 2. And even Death Stranding 2 doesn't really have any loading screens. This game though, every 30 seconds it felt like a loading screen. In the beginning of Chloe's nightmare sequence, when she looks at the Polaroid, you hear the lines between Max and Chloe talking about being partners in time. And I don't know why, but they re-recorded these lines even though they already re-recorded them in double exposure. So just to be clear, in the first game, you had this exchange between Hannah Tell, who voices Max, and Ashley Birch, who voiced Chloe in the first game.
I'm so glad you're my partner in crime. As long as you're my partner in time.
Now for double exposure, there's a flashback where Max recalls this line. So they brought in Rihanna DeVries and they had Hannah and Rihanna record this.
I love that you're my partner in crime.
As long as you're my partner in time.
That's version 2. And then for this game, they decided, I don't know, I guess just for the fun of it, to also record it with Rihanna again a third time.
I'm so glad you're my partner in crime.
As long as you're my partner in time.
So now there's literally 3 different recordings of the same iconic line. And if that to me isn't a beautifully apt metaphor for the state of this franchise, well then I just don't know what else is. In Max's car, you get to see her photography portfolio, and I don't know why Deck 9 chose to specifically show us this because they did such a bad job. It's 3 photos, and they're all so plain and simple. They just look like any basic thing you'd find on somebody's iPhone camera roll. And I think that's weird because in double exposure, we also got to see actual examples of Max's art, and it looks really great. So it just feels like a really sloppy half effort to be like, and here's Max's portfolio. It's 3 plain ass pictures of something your grandmother could take. Cool. In the courtyard, there's this beautiful statue, and I will say credit due where it's due. All of the statues and all of the physical art that's around Caledon, both in double exposure and in Reunion, I think are really nice and really cool. And if this was a real school, I'd be like, damn, this art school has some really great artists. There is one that I really love in this game of this woman, and she is holding what is clearly a net of skulls. She's carrying around a bunch of skulls that are all tied together, and yet the caption says, girl holding balloons, girl with balloons. And they're not balloons. And this isn't also they're not real skulls, but it's material. It's not like the material of the statue is balloons. There's no balloons here. It's a woman holding skulls, and the statue is very likely made out of bronze. And this really makes me question who captioned this. And honestly, I don't see how a human could have made this mistake, if you see where I'm going with this. All I'm going to say about this one is I don't think think a human could have made this mistake. I don't think that a human could have looked at this and been like, ah, yes, that is girl with balloons. There's also a couple minor spelling errors with some of the dialogue. Nothing too crazy, but also stuff that clearly could have used a second pair of eyes. At one point, Max says, "Hey, Reggie, find a subject yet?" But the subtitles say, "Found a subject yet?"
Hey, Reggie. Find a subject yet?
It's small, but it's there, and the game has this a few times. I really just feel like this game could have spent another month or two in the oven, mostly of people just double checking things and looking things over and fixing things, you know? It's clear they rushed out this game because, again, it came out only a year and a half after the last one, so now we know for sure that these games were a 2-package deal, but we also know that most of the budget went towards Double Exposure because a lot of people got fired after Double Exposure, and the fact that there wasn't really a technical team to do a lot of bug fixes after Double Exposure makes me extremely sad thinking about what the state of this game is going to be like in a year, because I have a feeling it's going to be virtually the same as it is now. Bugs and errors and all. The biggest spelling errors that users have come across are these signs on the campus. Tell me this game is a first draft without telling me this game is a first draft. Where it's supposed to say off-campus dining, it says off-campus dinning. The name Everett is also completely misspelled, and no version of Everett is ever spelt like this. These are clearly human errors, and again, no second pair of eyes went into the making of a lot of this game, it would appear. There's a moment of reflection in the quad where Max sits on this snail statue. I actually really like this moment of reflection, but also I can't help but find it mad funny because she is so fidgety. She like keeps resting her head on the snail and then immediately taking her head off and then bobbing up and down and around. It looks like she just took some Adderall and she's like, I'm sitting, I'm going to sit up. No, I'm going to put my head against the snail. No, I'm going to take my head off the snail. And then when she sits up, she literally runs off camera. Like, what did she take right before this? Because I want some. So at the start of the game, you're allowed to choose options that you've made in the first Life is Strange as well as Double Exposure, including whether or not you romanced Vin or Amanda. Now that I've played this game twice, I have found out that whether you romanced Vin or not, all of your conversations with him are the exact same. Here's what it looks like the first time that you talk to him in Reunion if you did not romance him.
Hey, I thought you were gone this weekend.
Plans changed. Hey, have you heard of a Caledon building called Fremont House?
Fremont? Not ringing a bell.
Casual, right? He's a friend. Cool. Here's what it looks like if you did romance him.
Hey, I thought you were gone this weekend.
Plans changed. Hey, have you heard of a Caledon building called Fremont House?
Fremont? Not ringing a bell.
Did you spot the difference? No, you didn't, because it's the exact same. And when you see him again later on in his office, the conversation is also the exact same.
You towed my car?
You mispronounced, "Thank you for saving my job, Vin. I owe you several drinks."
Why even give us the option of, oh, well, did you romance him or not? Because it's the exact same. The only thing that I spotted that is different, literally the only thing in this whole game that I could spot if you did romance him, is when you talk to Chloe and she asks you about any romances that you've had. Max will say something to the effect of, well, there is this guy, but we just decided to be friends or whatever. And that is the only thing in this entire 12-hour game that I could find that was any different if you said that you did romance him versus didn't. So there is also a lot of hard breaks in the way that conversation's supposed to be stitched together. And dear God, I hope they patch this one because it is just so fourth wall breaking. At the end of this Vin conversation, in the version where I did romance him, when Max is done talking, it just cuts to black and then into a completely different shot of her, a different frame of her, saying that she's gotta go.
That's a damn good feeling. I'll see you around.
They didn't even blend these two frames together, and she's not even in the exact same position. It's just straight up, two different shots, cut back to back with a black space in between. And that happens a few times in this game. And holy shit, does that make this game look cheap and sad. I do not understand this scene of fireflies coming out of the Abraxas house and then leading her to the secret entrance out back. This is never explained, and I guess you could say that they were just regular, normal fireflies fireflies, but that's absurd because they'd all just be what? Flying around inside the house, and then they all just filter out through this little crack, and then a bunch of them decide to go around the bend and gently make their way to a secret entrance where Max also has to go. It's just really weird and absurd because they also make this kind of buzzing sound, and anyone who's seen fireflies in real life also knows that they are completely silent because they are so little. So yeah, I don't know, just some like classic Deck 9 nonsense. They're like, well, Max is at the front of the house and she needs to get to the secret entrance. How should we do that? They're like, I know, you know, it'd be cool, and totally makes sense. Some fireflies. They'll be inside the house and then they'll come out of the house and then they'll go around the corner. And then Max likes stuff. She likes things. She likes butterflies and insects and other stuff, I guess. And I don't know, I saw her follow a deer once in one of the games, probably. So now she'll like follow some fireflies and then they'll lead her to the secret entrance. And it's like, okay. And then later on, when she is drugged at the Abraxas house, she has a vision where she thinks she sees fireflies. And I'm like, ooh, maybe this means something. Nah, nope. No. I guess they just had some fucking Firefly assets they felt like reusing, and they just wedged them in there however they could. During Max's reflection at the lake, there are two songs playing over each other at the same time. Double Exposure also had a similar error where the same song was playing twice at two different times. I mean, this isn't an error I'd ever seen in Before the Storm or True Colors, so I guess Deck 9 is just literally getting worse at what they do. The scene where Amanda does stand-up really bothers me, and I think it's like kind of a quintessential, this is what Deck 9's version of gameplay is like, because it's so uninvolved and it's so passive that even the player doesn't really get to see how a scene fully pans out. Amanda goes up to the stage to do her stand-up, and then it just fades to black, and then it fades up on her walking away and a guy booing her. And then now you as Max have to use your rewind powers. There's no option on this, by the way. And that's another one of my huge gripes is 90% of all the rewind segments are necessary to move the plot forward. You don't have any options. So unlike the whole, cosmic question in the first one of do I use my powers or not? Do I have the right? This game is like, bitch, use your powers. You want to get to the next scene? Use your rewind powers to stop that heckler. But the other thing too is we didn't watch the fucking stand-up. So I don't really feel personally that motivated to step in and help Amanda because I don't even know if she did a good job. What if she went up there and she just was crap? I mean, when you do the rewind sequence and then she ends up going up there and doing a good job, this is the line you hear her end her stand-up with.
So I told him, I'm not the expert on duck penises here. Maybe we should ask the magician.
So I've also got mixed feelings about whether or not I actually wanted to help her succeed there. You can really tell there was so many cut corners in this game. I'll bet you anything that whole stand-up segment probably was written into it, because who would write a video game script that's like character goes up and starts talking and then it fades to black and then it fades back on and it's 5 minutes later and she walks away. There's a conversation between Max and Chloe on the outside patio after Sophie leaves where you have to do a rewind sequence so that Chloe can get you the mask that's in Sophie's bag. I experienced a bug here where it continued to play rewind sounds and not dialogue while Chloe was talking. And this game has a lot of audio bugs. It's got sequences where it feels like music should be playing, but it isn't. Double Exposure might have had the occasional audio bug, but this one has a lot. So like I said at the start of the game, you get to choose whether or not you romanced Chloe in the first game. And this is also totally arbitrary because whether you chose you romanced her or you ended the game just being friends with her, when you're on this boat together, you're given the option to kiss her. Totally bizarre considering the fact that you're just friends. And then later on in the course courtyard, you're given the option to kiss her again. And y'all, that is so stupid. The first time that I played the game, obviously I chose that I romanced Chloe in the first game. And I kissed her on the canoe, or at least I tried, and then I kept tripping, and then Chloe confronted me about that. And I actually genuinely found that scene really funny and kind of clever. And then later on in the courtyard, we did a big old smooch, and it was really nice and romantic. And there's some aspects about Max and Chloe's relationship in this game that I do really enjoy. It is totally fan service, and maybe occasionally it verges on the side of almost like obnoxiously in your face. But I also do think that a lot of it works. But not everyone played the first game romantically, which is why this game gives you the option to say, did you end the first game with Max and Chloe just being friends? So the second time that I played the game, I chose that option. And guess what? Just like the Vin romance, it doesn't matter what choices I made. Chloe was still just as flirty. I was still given the option to kiss her at the boat. I was still given the option to kiss her in the courtyard. What the fucking fuck? Is she my friend or is she a romance? Because this game basically suggests that they're one in the same, which is also so wrong-headed for this series. Why couldn't they just remove these options? If you didn't choose the romantic path, you shouldn't be given romantic options. It's one way or the other. You can't be half in, half out. In the observatory with Chloe and Max, when Chloe throws the photograph onto the table, you can already see that it's glowing and sparkling and like little lights are shooting off of it. Even though Max doesn't get her powers going on it for several minutes, because we see Max do this. And yet, if you watch this scene, the photographs are just glowing and sparkling the whole time. Even in like wide shots, if you zoom in, yep, there it is. Do you think anyone who worked there noticed this? Or do you think they noticed it and went, oh, we don't have time to patch that, so I guess it just doesn't make sense. I'm sure no one will notice. It's really bothersome to me that almost every time you switch between Max and Chloe, almost every new scene that you start, you're inundated with a new journal entry, sometimes upwards of 2 or 3 pages, and a bunch of texts, sometimes up to 4 different text chains. This is something Double Exposure was also very guilty of, and I really, really hate it because it's extremely momentum breaking. And as I have reviewed all of the Life is Strange games, I have come to realize that sometimes I missed certain key details by not reading journal entries and not reading every single text in Double Exposure. So when I played Reunion for the first time, I took my time with everything. Every single time it said new journal entry, I stopped what the fuck I was doing and I spent 5-10 minutes reading these journals. And then I went over to all the texts and I read all the different text exchanges. And I did it every single time they came right up on screen so I wouldn't put it off and so that I was reading them at the time that I was being told about them, so that I was in sync with what the story and what the gameplay is telling me to do. And it made for a very sluggish experience because also a lot of scenes start off in a way that they have like energy or momentum. It starts with a character walking into a room and declaring something, and then just as they're declaring it, you're supposed to pause and then read 3 journal entries they made and then 5 different texts from somebody, and a lot of it is really superfluous. And while we are on the subject of journals, let's talk about the journals in this game because woof, I thought they were bad in Double Exposure. Oh my God, what happened? You cannot convince me there was somebody in charge of these journals. This definitely reads to me like a leftover task that nobody at Deck 9 wanted. At least Chloe's look a little bit more realistic because they're on lined paper and they use a marker style handwritten font that's decently convincing. But Max's, holy shit, it's just plain gray paper with the most comical looking font that could never be handwriting. And then these really weird, almost AI looking digital drawings that, wouldn't you know it, happen to be the exact same art style as whatever artist did all of the paintings at the Snapping Turtle. And that's another thing too, is there's like a real ludonarrative dissonance here where in Chloe and Max's journals, are these supposed to be drawings they've made? Chloe, sure, she's a sketch artist, but oh boy, Max is not an illustrator, and why would she illustrate the things that she's illustrated? As if Max would just create a perfect self-portrait of herself at Chloe's funeral with the butterfly. Right. Max just decided to casually sketch that. It's totally not a literal screenshot from the first game that somebody animated over. Oh, also, I love how Max's journal just has Polaroids that are literal screenshots from Life is Strange 1 and Double Exposure. Also, the journals are in such extreme close-ups. Look at it. And there's all this UI and writing around it. I really just wish that we could zoom out so we could at least see the journal and get a full sense of scale. Instead, it goes straight to the corners. So sometimes there's drawings and stuff that just you can't even fully see because the journals are so damn zoomed in. So annoying. Like on page 12 of Chloe's journal, there's a picture of the cat in the upper right corner and it's just totally covered up by the UI. Can you hide the UI? You already know the fucking answer to that question. No, you can't hide the UI. Whoever was the journal artist for Double Exposure Reunion, it just appeared as some kind of leftover task that some random intern got stuck with. Because it's very unpolished, it totally lacks direction, and it's so fucking sad when you compare it to the other journals. The first time the game actually says this action will have consequences is something like 2 hours into the story. And this is the only Life is Strange game where I've noticed that seeing the "this action will have consequences" text on top doesn't happen much. No wonder why there's no episode breaks in this game, because they don't want to have to prove as the game goes how many actions and consequences there are or aren't. So when Chloe shows up for the first time, there's 2 different versions of what song they play here. If you chose the version where Chloe died, then it'll play Spanish Sahara, which in the Chloe dying ending is the song that they played. If you choose the version where Chloe lives, it plays Piano Fire by Sparkle Horse, which is the song that Max and Chloe danced to in the first game, but obviously not the song that they played in the version where Chloe lived. In that version, they played Obstacles by Sid Matters. We'll probably never get the full story on this one, but I have to assume that the rights were just not able to be got. Maybe because the people who own Sid Matters music got offered a really shitty rate for it and they had too much integrity to say yes. Or perhaps as a simple cost-cutting measure, Deck 9 just decided that maybe that one would be too hard to get. So they thought, well, we'll just replace it with any song from the first game and people will like that. Well, guess what? People didn't really like that. Okay, hot take, but neither version works for me. In the Sparkle Horse version, the song is really high and energetic and happy, and it's a weird mood for what is clearly, with the cinematography they chose, meant to be a big dramatic beat. It would have worked a lot better if this song was diegetically playing through Chloe's speakers, which I actually thought maybe was the vibe they were going for at first, but no. And that actually could have worked, because I could see Chloe the character listening to Piano Fire by Sparkle Horse, but as it being a non-diegetic mood-setting song, fucking bizarre choice. However, the Spanish Sahara version also doesn't work, and the reason why it doesn't work is because Spanish Sahara is like a 6 or 7 minute ballad that starts off really slow and quiet, and then it builds to this huge finish. And that's why in the first game, they made a 6-minute cutscene that fits the 6-minute song, right? So what do they do in this scene? They chop up the song in like 5 places and then try to drop it into a 40-second sequence, and it's so bad. Because they tried to take a really slow song with a long build-up and chop it into a 40-second soundbite, and it is so weird because the song literally just hits you like a ton of bricks. It just comes out of nowhere. Like the song's not happening, and then it's happening, and then suddenly it's the climax of the song, and then the song is over. It's really, really weird, and no shade, but I was pretty surprised that some Life is Strange fans said they found this to be very emotional, and that it elicited a huge response from them. To me, that's like very successful, nostalgia-baiting, manipulative bullshit, and I'm not knocking the fans if it worked, but for me, it really, really didn't. And you know what? I already knew they were going to use the song, and I was actually all for it. The original rumor that was going around is basically there was an article, some Spanish article that was posted that said if you chose the version where Chloe dies, it'll play Spanish Sahara when she shows up. And if you chose the version where Chloe lives, it'll play Obstacles by Sid Matters when she shows up. That's what this article said. In retrospect, I think that maybe the person who wrote this article got to play one version, the version with Spanish Sahara, and then made an assumption that the other version would play Obstacles because playtesters were only allowed to play one version. So I think the person who wrote that article just made an honest mistake. I don't think it was like, well, they did have Obstacles and the last minute it got pulled. I doubt that's what happened, but I think we all know that must have been the original intent. Whether they couldn't get the rights or they just didn't get the rights, this whole scene, honestly, whack. And when I had first heard about it, I thought that actually sounds great. That's definitely nostalgia baiting, but if you do it right, it could work really well. But then I played the game and I remembered, oh, right. Deck 9 made this. I don't know why I had faith in them that they could do that right, that they could take Spanish Sahara and use it meaningfully, because they really, really didn't. And again, I actually think they could have, but chopping the song in 4 or 5 places was so fucking stupid of them. I really didn't like how they did this. It was the worst nostalgia baiting thing the whole game does. This game is also kind of low on moments of reflection. You know, in the first game, I think there must be like 8 to 12. And in this game, I think there was 4 or 5. Also, for a game that claims to be dual protagonist, it's a very Max heavy game because you do play as both. And when you played as Max in the first game, you got all kinds of moments of calm / reflection. They've changed the nomenclature a few times. Remember True Colors when it was moments of Zen for like one game? So moments of whatever, you know what I'm talking about. Max has a bunch of moments of calm in the first game. And then in Before the Storm, Chloe has a bunch of moments of calm in her game. And then in this game, which is a dual protagonist game, Max has about 4 or 5 moments of calm and Chloe has 0. And you know what? I feel like Deck 9 probably didn't even realize they did that. It just feels like this game was made with so few people. I feel like at no point did somebody go, did you guys realize that this game stars both of them and you play both of them, but only Max has moments of calm and Chloe doesn't? And Chloe had her own moments of calm in Before the Storm, some of which are iconic, by the way. Let's face it, y'all, this is a Max game, and it shows. Because also, in terms of collectibles, Max has something like 20 collectible photos. Cool, that's a nice, decent amount. I worked really hard to get all of those, and I was happy to get the achievement that I did. Chloe has her sketches. Well, not only are the sketches totally meaningless because all that happens is you approach an item, and if you interact with it, it gives you the option to sketch, but then you don't see the character do it. It just has a little pop-up that says, collectible found. So you don't see her do the sketch, and the sketch doesn't appear on screen. It just tells you that she made a sketch of it, and then you can pause the game and go into your collectible where you will see the most basic ass art style drawing of the object ever. It is so unappealing, and it doesn't look anything like a real sketch. It literally looks like you put like an AI sketch filter over something because they're all so immaculate and perfect and have nothing but straight lines and perfect circles in them. And also she has 7. She has 7. Max has 20 collectibles and Chloe has 7. Even in a game where they're saying that Chloe's a protagonist, again, she's getting shafted. I just, you know, Deck 9's never going to beat those rumors that they actually hate the character of Chloe. And they did this because their hand was really forced by the reception. I really, really don't like how the rewind powers play and feel in this game. One thing is I kept rewinding too far. When it tells you that you need to rewind, it'll immediately flash back with 0 time if you press the quick rewind button, which was also a huge mistake to add because when you press the quick rewind button, you won't see any animation and it'll be so fast that you'll think you'll need to still rewind. So if you press it a second time, you'll rewind a whole second moment back. So it sends you back 2 story beats instead of 1. And I kept doing this by accident and then I'd have to redo a step. So it also made rewind sequences really fucking boring because I kept having to redo conversations that I didn't mean to redo. The quick rewind option was a terrible thing to add. It takes away the stylishness of the rewind. It takes away the impact of the rewind. It takes away the gameplay of it. You literally press a button and you're just rewound. So nothing feels like it, just the rewind power feels so powerless. And that's the thing. Rewind powers in this game are mostly used as a process of elimination rather than a choice path. In the original game, you'd have a conversation, and then once the conversation was over, you could rewind, have it a totally different way, and then make a decision of how to move forward. In this one, oh my god, you constantly just have to use it as a process of elimination. This person says something to you, well, that didn't work. Rewind once. Choose a different option. Well, that didn't work. Rewind once. Choose a third option. Oh, that one worked. Conversation moves forward. And then they say something you don't like again. Rewind. Go forward. Rewind. Go forward. And you do this for every conversation until it's over, and only then can you move the plot forward. It feels really lame, and it is so repetitive. There are some conversations where I had to hear the same character say the same thing 3, 4, or 5 times just to move the plot forward, and the dialogue in this game is not good enough for me to listen to it 3, 4, 5 goddamn times. Kind of makes you think too much about it, and then you kind of start to think about how some of the conversations just feel pointless. And ultimately, the goal of this scene is just to move the plot forward. So the dialogue, instead of becoming something that you're really engaged with, becomes an obstacle to move the plot forward. And this is a Life is Strange game. How did they manage to make dialogue feel like an obligation? I love dialogue in Life is Strange games. I love just sitting and listening to conversations, and I love how you can have all of these optional conversations. Conversing with people in this game felt like a chore, especially because of how many times you had to rewind during it. You didn't have an option. The puzzles are also dead ass simple. I remember in the first game, having to do that puzzle where you get the paint bucket to fall on Victoria wasn't exactly clear cut, and I had to do it maybe 2 or 3 times to get it right. And then I felt all accomplished when I did it. In this one, wow, it's just all so obvious and so simple and so clear and so linear. Oh, you gotta stop the Abraxas charges? Okay, go over here, cut the cord. Oh no, a bookshelf fell. Well, rewind so the bookshelf didn't fall, and then cut that cord. Oh, time's running out a little bit. Rewind a little bit more. Run over there and cut that cord. Success. Scene done. Just so obvious and so clear. I really feel like a child could do these rewind challenges. Again, they're just obstacles to move the plot forward. I really, really hate how Deck 9 did rewind powers, but I am not surprised because it was so complex in the first one and had such a signature don't nod edge. I think we can all agree Deck 9 has never been good at how they've done people's powers. Also, in the first game, when you rewound too far, you would get this animation.
I can't continue. It hurts too much.
It would look like Max was starting to black out, and she'd even have voiceover saying, I can't go back any further. This is what it looks like when you do it in this game. It just restarts. Nothing happens, and it'll just do this on a loop. When I say this game has cut corners, Noelle's character is really poorly acted. I pointed this out in my live reaction the first time we saw a clip of her.
Hey, didn't I kick your ass out? You're going on the banned list. Are you a student?
No.
Good. Then I'm banning you from campus, too. Name?
Shit. Better think fast.
Top-notch acting on this security guard's part. A+.
She's just so stiff and so wooden. And I also think it's weird that the character model doesn't match the delivery or the tone of the actor at all. The character model is giving cool and edgy and probably easy to get along with and maybe even a potentially fun person. And then the voice actor is giving, they literally pulled a random person off the street and offered them $100 to record all of these lines in one go with no second takes.
Hey, didn't I kick your ass out?
Not trying to be a dick, but truly some of the worst acting seen in the entire franchise. I also noticed that subtitles for songs appear several seconds before the song actually starts. This one to me is annoying because it just kind of kills the surprise element. It kills the dramatic presentation of it. These games are iconic for including their music, and having a little text on screen that tells you the song is starting, but then the song doesn't start for another 5 seconds is just bizarre and stupid, and just another classic example of oversight because this game is so quickly rushed. I'm just sure nobody on Deck 9's team noticed that. When Max and Moses are talking and he shows her the headline about Safi being dead, Max disappears in the background and and then Moses completely changes pose. When Chloe says this line, her mouth doesn't move.
Don't talk to me, nerd. Go socialize.
And I tried it twice in a row just for good measure, and her mouth doesn't move either time. There is a lot of very passive follow-up information about double exposure, and I find it kind of funny because everyone predicted this. People were making bingo cards of what they assumed was going to happen in Reunion, and one that I kept seeing everywhere was Maya Okada won't be mentioned or she'll barely be mentioned. And yeah, ding, 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 bingo, that's a bingo. Yeah, so the only mention of Maya you really get at all is you can see a book in Moses's office that is Maya's unreleased works now published. So many questions. First of all, who published this book? Who compiled her works? Who's profiting off of this? The whole last game was about how Maya's work had been stolen and published by somebody else who is now profiting off of her work. And you could also say profiting off of her death because she was never able to out this person for taking her work. So considering that Safi was her best friend and she's out on the run and Moses is definitely no publisher, who the fuck published Maya's work? Who went through all of her personal belongings, thoughtfully compiled all of her poems and her stories, and then put them out into a book? There is no answer for this question. There's no answer you could tell me that makes a lick of sense. And I know that Yasmin didn't do it because I think at this point, Safi would have gone back and shot her mother again if she did that. And there's just nobody else here. What, Maya's family did it? Okay. Sorry, that serves the plot of Reunion how? Every time Deck 9 makes a new game, they go, don't you fucking bring up any of our previous games. Don't you fucking try and make sense of it. Pay attention to this game right now. How dare you try and connect this game with the other game that it's a sequel to? You know, how dare you ask questions like, well, who would have written a fucking book for Maya? This was probably one of the dumbest things I came across in this game because it just would have worked so much better if they just didn't do this. They should have just not mentioned Maya at all because this is somehow way worse. This just opens up a whole bunch of questions that there's no good answer to, and it also wouldn't behoove the plot at all to explore this. Just so stupid. Moses' hairline, I don't know what they're doing here, but it literally looks like he's like a little plastic figure and his hairline is glued on with super glue, but they use too much super glue. So the super glue is leaking out of all of the edges of his hair cap. I don't know why they did this. If they were trying to go for some sort of realism in how a hairline looks, all I'm going to say is, well, they failed. This looks really weird. Why is it so shiny? Why does it literally have the consistency of super glue when it's oozing out of something? It was really distracting. There is a lot of hair clipping. Chloe's hair clips through her face. You can see it in scenes with her and Moses. Safi's hair clips into her cheeks in her very first scene with Max. Safi's hair also clips to her face when she and Max are talking at the admin office. This is just, again, another one of those things. If they had spent another month or two on this game before releasing it, I'm sure somebody might have noticed this stuff and patched it. But here we are, and these are the kind of little things. To me, it's a big deal, personally. In games that are all about people and the human nature of things, and also games littered with cutscenes, people's fucking hair going inside of their head is really weird to me. It just upsets me to think that like 10, 15 years from now, people are going to be playing Reunion and Chloe's hair is going to be clipping into the fucking side of her head, and every time you press skip in a conversation, it'll just cut to black. Just great. This one is smaller, but there also used to be a giant pride flag in the Snapping Turtle, and now there isn't. I'm not the only person who's pointed this one out, but I do think it's interesting that there was some real anti-queer and anti-trans rhetoric that happened with Double Exposure. Not a lot, because the game honestly flew so under the radar that there wasn't a lot of space for bigots to make their thoughts known about it. But there also was. I got this ridiculously unhinged comment on my Double Exposure roast that was like, I was liking the game fine until they showed the scene at the bar and there was a giant pride flag in the background and I was so distracted by it. And that's when I gave up because I can handle certain things, but I can't handle the agenda pushing. My guy, you went to the gay game and you were shocked and horrified and upset that there was gay in it. Like, okay, sure. But yeah, there's no pride flag and there's no Gwen this time. Funny that. Just stupid decisions happening behind the scenes that we will never make sense of. This game is queer as fuck, and if you have an issue with that, then don't fucking play it. But if you don't have an issue with it, which is highly likely that you don't, because these are also incredibly queer positive spaces in the gaming industry, then why get rid of the pride flag? More of a deal will be made over the fact that it's missing than if they had just kept it up because it was in the first game. You know? In this really romantic boat scene, which I do think overall is pretty well written, not only are there those blurry shots that I acknowledge, but also in all of the wide shots, their heads are glowing like matchsticks on fire. Look at this shit. It's like 4 shots. Max is glowing red and Chloe's hair is glowing green. Huge bug. Apparently some people on PC haven't gotten this bug. God, I hope they patch this one because it actually really ruins an otherwise pretty beautiful scene. I think the biggest game-breaking bug, or at least one that means you have to restart the scene and possibly restart the game in order for it to work, is at the Abraxas party. And I've already seen so many posts about this, which means every fucking buddy is getting it. When this Abraxas party scene starts, well, as one Redditor described, it's like a flash bang went off. I reloaded the scene and it was still there. I had to go back to the main menu and reload from there. I played the game twice. This huge bug where everything is really overly bright happened in both playthroughs. I at least expect they'll patch this one because hundreds of people have reported it online. But even so, how did they not catch this? It's huge. This scene is also really Reggie heavy, and you know what? What I did like about Reunion is it softened the edges of characters that were not super likable in Double Exposure. I think Amanda and Vin and Safi feel, to varying degrees, more likable and better characters overall in this game. And that is definitely a plus for Reunion. Reggie though, oh my god, they gave this actor too much to do in this game. They really put their eggs in the wrong basket by deciding that now for some stupid fucking reason, Reggie, who, I don't know, is kind of depicted as like the bumbling village idiot member of Abraxas in the first game, is now the head of Abraxas, and he has so much dialogue, and it really doesn't work for me.
Oh my god, my teacher's here. I do not need this right now.
Sorry for venting like that. You're a very good listener. See you around.
And then also, I can't wrap my head around, this is just creating plot obstacles for the sake of it, even though it makes no sense. There is a secret room in the basement, and Max needs to get to it because there's some kind of damning evidence behind there. Vin tells her that only the head of Abraxas knows how to get into this secret room, and that it's a ritual/puzzle that only the head of Abraxas gets to know, which means that we know that Vin knows how to do it and has presumably been in that secret room before. Reggie is freaking out because he has to do it and he doesn't know how. They made this guy the head of Abraxas, but they didn't trust him enough to know the secrets that only the head of Abraxas is allowed to know. Which also makes no sense because the head of Abraxas, Reggie, is supposed to perform a certain ritual, but the instructions on how to do it are in this secret room, and Reggie doesn't know how to solve the puzzle. What the fuck is going on here? How are they supposed to do this ritual if no one's going to tell the head, the only guy who's allowed to do it, how to do it? It almost feels like this could have been a subplot about how Vin's bitterness towards not being the head of Abraxas means that he didn't give Reggie the things that he was supposed to, including the information on how to take over as the head of Abraxas. If that's something they were trying to allege here, they did a terrible job because also Reggie and Vin are not on screen together this whole game. That's another thing too, is like a lot of characters that had screen time together and relationships with each other in Double Exposure are just totally separated from each other here. Remember how in the first game, Moses and Safi were best friends? And then Moses even felt, hurt by Safi's decisions and how she took off. Well, when she comes back in this game, she doesn't mention Moses, she doesn't ask after him, and the only scene that we see of them two together is right near the end, and it's in a group scene where literally all we get is this one line from Moses.
I'm just glad you're here. The real you.
Co-signed.
Safi doesn't even say anything back. She doesn't run up and hug him. She apparently doesn't miss him now. They clearly forgot that they were going to have to do something to bring these two characters together because this whole game is about Max and Chloe. So Safi basically just shows up to talk to Max and then to make Chloe part of the plot. There are so many weird things and plot holes and disconnect from Double Exposure, and then a lot of weird shit that they do with the canon of the first game to make this one work, and I have intensely mixed feelings about it. I'm sure you also have a lot of thoughts about this game. Feel free to sound off in the comments. I know I just barely scratched the surface. Tell me, what was the worst part of the game for you? What was the most nonsensical thing? What was the biggest bug you experienced? Did you also experience every single one of these bugs? I don't know what's more annoying, the bugs or the plot holes. And I'll be sure to dive into the plot holes and much, much more in my full review. But until then, I hope you have some fun. I hope you get some rest. And I will see you all very, very soon. Thank you.